So the first tip that I have for all guitarists I think is really important is posture. This gets overlooked easily. A lot of us just pick up the guitar and try to just go for it. But I find that having good posture is really important because you're going to be comfortable with your instrument, and if you're comfortable with your instrument, you're going to want to play it. If every time you pick it up, you're doing awkward things with your body that are, making you uncomfortable, then subconsciously maybe you're not going to want to pick it up anymore. So with that being said, there's a lot of different ways you can have good posture on the guitar. There's not just one way. Right now, I have a strap on. It's fairly wide, it's comfortable, it's leather. It doesn't have to be a strap like this. This guitar is pretty light, so when it sits on my shoulders, doesn't cause much stress to my back. However, if you have a heavier guitar, I recommend a thick, wide strap so it spreads some of the weight out on your back. If you're a young player or if you play a lot of acoustic guitar, I recommend getting something where you can get your leg up a little bit and then rest the weight of the guitar on your leg so the guitar is balanced between your leg and your arm. What you don't want to be holding the guitar at all with these hands, right? You notice how I can move my hands around? There's no problem for the guitar. It almost feels like it's a part of my body when it sits right here, and it's not like it's not like a fish that trying to jump out of my hands, which an instrument often looks like with somebody who's just picking it up for the first times. So posture is really important in that sense, and posture is the best case I can make for why you need a good teacher, because a good teacher will be able to work with you on the individual level to get a way of holding the instrument that works well for you. My second big tip is fingertips. All right, this is a big one because there's so many self-taught guitar players, so many great self-taught guitar players that play flat-fingered all over the neck, right? And with a thumb over like this. And truth be told, a lot of them have a beautiful sound. They have a great way of playing the instrument, and I'm not going to say anything to badmouth any particular guitar player or anything like that. A lot of my favorite players play like this with their fingers, flat against the neck. However, if you develop the habit early on of playing with your fingertips arched over like this and really just engaging the points of the guitar with your fingertips only, then you're going to have a lot more success reproducing good sounds. Like this chord is going to be really hard to play if your thumb is over and your fingers are kind of flat against the neck. So there's always exceptions to this rule. The longer you play, you're going to find certain chords where you might have to move your thumb around and move your fingers a little bit flat, and that's fine. But if you start off with these good habits, it's going to make your life easier. And if you're a guitar player who's been playing for a long time, it's going to help you. I didn't have a teacher really push me on this issue until pretty late after I'd already been a professional musician, and it really took my playing to a new level. So fingertips is my second big tip. My third big tip is to practice slow. Okay, this may seem kind of obvious. If anything that's difficult, if you're doing it fast, it's more difficult, right? To me, I almost look at it like a bandwidth issue. You have a certain amount of time to fit a certain amount of information into, and if you're trying to play fast, chances are you're trying to fit a lot of information into a small amount of time. And so practicing slow allows you to just give yourself a bigger space to fit the same amount of information. And in doing that, you'll actually have time to think about what you're doing. If you're playing something really fast and chances are you're missing a lot of the details, at least the first time that you're doing it. So I really encourage my students to practice things slowly so that they have time to pay attention to the details as they're actually happening, which you could do when you have a little bit extra space to work with. My fourth tip for all, this is really great for all guitarists and any musician, is to practice with a metronome, a drum machine, or recordings, or all three if you can. Some sort of time-keeping source And they all have their own benefits. But the reason why you do this is because you want to develop a sense of internal rhythm when you play, so that when you're playing, that you're expressing your ideas in a rhythmically compelling and strong way. I think the musicians that I enjoy listening to the most all have a sense of rhythm that's uniquely their own and uniquely interesting to listen to. Practicing with a metronome is great because all it is just beats clicking, the simplest way to do it. Practicing with a drum machine is great because you get to practice with different grooves. And practicing with recordings is great because that way you actually really engage with the personalities of musicians that you enjoy listening to. When I was starting to learn, rock guitar, playing along with Led Zeppelin recordings is great because you get to play with one of the greatest rock drummers in history. John Bonham. What a better way to learn how to groove with a rock band than to do something like that. The same thing goes for now learning how to play jazz, is that you have all these unique musicians who phrase and express time in their own individual way. And playing along with those recordings has really been, by far, I think, the most important thing in my learning experience. The last tip is to practice frequently. All right. Now, notice I'm not saying practice a lot. I'm not saying practice 4 or 5 hours a day. Not many people are looking to be professional musicians. But if you're looking to make progress on an instrument, if you do it frequently, you're going to yield better results than if you do something infrequently. Let's say you have only an hour during the entire week to practice. You're much better off practicing for 15 minutes for 4 days than you are for doing an hour on one day. Because, for instance, if I'm in a lesson with a student and I'm going over a concept with him or her, that if they don't revisit it for 4 or 5 days, then that idea kind of just evaporates. But if they revisit it the next day just for a little bit, and the next day just for a little bit, and the next day just for a little bit, their brain takes time to actually, kind of internalize it and understand it, and they come back usually with a good understanding of what it is. And so, especially if you're a young student, or you're just really stretched for time, doing something a little bit every day is really the best way to go.